Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me in this video where I give probably what will be the last update before completion of my Versailles mega project. The most dramatic thing that I've updated is, well, obviously this, the Hall of Mirrors. I had promised myself I was going to wait until the whole project was finished before doing the Hall of Mirrors, but the palace was already finished, and I felt like I had to give myself a little boost and do something that required a good bit of creativity. You can see I actually came up with a new mirror design. It's my magenta stained glass, which is based off of the ice texture, but I have it with an MC Meta file where it's actually animated to look like the glass is shimmering like a mirror. And of course, there are plenty of other custom textures that I've come up with over the course of the past year, used in the construction of the Hall of Mirrors here. You can see the nice Rouge de Rance, which was one of the first things that I came up with for this project. Going out, we go into the King's state apartments and going down the enfilade. These were all some of the earliest rooms built in the palace. A few updates since March when I last had an update video. I did the ambassador's staircase. This was replaced during the reign of Louis XV, in large part because it was lit by a skylight that, well, 17th century skylights were not the most sturdy things. It was falling apart, it was leaking, so they got rid of the ambassador's staircase and put a new one in. It was one of the main staircases for the original palace extension under Louis XIV. And I just thought it was so beautiful I had to include it, especially compared to the staircase that's currently in this location, which is much narrower, kind of dark. I like the dramatic entrance to the King's State apartments here. And some other things that I did touch ups on, we have the Salon of Hercules. I made just minor adjustments, they're probably imperceptible. Other updates have been the chapel anteroom and then the chapel itself. I actually made the whole thing wider by 2 blocks, and I redid the columns, I redid the floor. Quite a bit went into the chapel renovation. I made a whole video about that a few months ago. Going down here on the north wing, which, just a note, I do realize that my palace is flipped 180 degrees so that north is south, south is north, east is west, west is east. But I refer to the directions of the build based off of the real life Versailles, not the Minecraft cardinal directions. See, in the north and south wings, there are a lot of museum rooms. These are some museum galleries in the north wing. And going down to the garden level, we'll take a look at the opera, which I went through a couple of iterations on. It's now been pretty long completed for a few months, but that also required a lot of the custom textures, especially a lot of the gold elements. Here we have the nice lobby, and then into the actual opera. Plenty of gold, a lot of the nice Rouge de Rance, a lot of the nice cobbled deep slate that I have looking like a light gray marble, and some of that nice pink granite, pink marble, which is actually in this texture pack, smooth red sandstone. Going back towards the main body of the palace, we had a lot of hallways that had to be done, a lot of kind of boring things, sequences of rooms, art galleries, some interesting things like this. This is the ground floor vestibule for the chapel. This, I believe, is the entrance to the palace if you're a visitor today. That's coming out of the Gabriel wing, which was not really, it wasn't part of the original palace. and it was actually, I believe, only just completed in the past few decades, going from the royal court to the honor court. We also have these nice thin frames around the windows. That's part of the texture pack that I updated. I took blast furnaces and made them look half like smooth sandstone, half like brick. You can see originally what a lot of the walls look like over here versus now using this blast furnace technique. I use the blast furnace because it orients in four different directions. So obviously I can have it orient in the four different directions for the walls. We have over here the Grand Common, which housed the main kitchens as well as a lot of servants and some courtier apartments. And I did make sure to furnish most of the inside. I don't believe the floor plan is entirely accurate. I actually believe I used a copy of the ground floor blueprints and then just copied that all the way up. But it was changed so many times through history that it doesn't really matter at this point. We have the municipal library, which was originally the Navy and Foreign Affairs building. And the library, I tried to replicate some of the pictures of the enfilade going down through the stacks. So here you can see all the nice bookshelves, a lot of the custom furniture. I'm really pleased with how the library turned out. It also didn't take me all that long. It was a nice kind of mini project. There are a few other buildings here in the city that are similar to that. A lot of these buildings were based off of pictures of real life buildings in the city of Versailles. And for every building here, I copied it over many times. Now, each time I would make sure to have subtle variations, whether it be change the color, change the shutters, change the windows. That way I didn't have to build every building individually. But we do have quite a bit of buildings in this city. Over here, we have the tennis court, site of the famous tennis court oath in 1789, which was a pivotal part of the French Revolution. I have it set up the way that it is currently today, which is as a museum to the French Revolution, with busts of revolutionaries, a statue there in the middle. Uh, Let me go ahead and just make a little adjustment here while I'm here. There are so many things in this city that it's easy to forget things that I want to do. Yeah, I think that's okay for now. That was also part of the reason why I wanted to wait for the Hall of Mirrors. I didn't want to do it too early and then come up with other textures and other ideas after the fact and need to go back and change too much. One of the things in the city that I was working on most recently is over in this direction. It's the King's Vegetable Garden, which is still there today. I do think that's going to be the southern limit of my city. Across the street, right behind me now, there is a large church. I'm not sure if I'm going to build that or not because I would have to start extending the city a good bit. The vegetable garden I thought was a nice, good boundary between the urban city and then the countryside beyond. I'm very pleased with how the garden turned out. I have nice rows of not just vegetables, but sugar cane. I have flowers, lots of vegetation, very pretty, but very practical. Let's make sure that we keep the daylight here. So I'm still finishing up this. This is the last of the specific parts of the city that I'm doing. I'm following real life, well, images, if not plans, of the buildings here. And a lot of those I'll also copy and paste and use elsewhere in the city just to fill up the last bits of empty spaces. I feel like I need a whole little army of contractors to come in and build condos in every single empty lot that's here. I especially need to build a few more corner buildings, some of them kind of narrow to fit here on the edges. But this is the south side of the city of Versailles. It's several blocks. The overall city is not going to be as large as the real life city of Versailles by the time I'm done, but I don't think that really matters. I could keep going until I reach Paris. I could keep going until I build all of France. It would be just too much to handle. We have here the stables, the Grand and Petit Écurie. I also used the blast furnace texture technique here just a few days ago, just to make the walls look a little bit better, a little bit higher ratio of the red brick to the yellow sandstone. Down here at the end, we have a bit more artistic license. Here, I am trying to build the temporary meeting hall where the three estates, the Estates General, met. It was a temporary hall that was actually built a little bit further out in the city uh, within the king's pleasure gardens. It was a name something like that that really referred to where the king would go for plays or to see games. Across the way, we have Symphony Hall in Boston. That's just because I wanted to build Symphony Hall. It's one of the most acoustically perfect uh, symphony halls in the world, and I wanted to build it. And I thought, well, I think the design of the building will fit just fine here in the city of Versailles. Going over to the north side of the city, we have in the northern corner of what I will develop a market square. This is in real life, it kind of in the heart of Versailles, not really on the edge. But like I said, I'm not going to continue the city out all the way to its limits. I like the way it turned out. I thought it was a nice way to kind of border the city, a market square. And then we have some more of the buildings. In the past 4 months since my last update video, one of the first things that I had done, in fact, I did most of this just before Easter, we have the church, Notre Dame. And inside, it's nicely decorated. I still have to do some of the back rooms, the offices. There's also a chapel, a round chapel behind the church that I haven't finished. But the main body of the church is done. We have a nice organ up there. This road leads back towards the palace. On the way, we'll come up through the backside of the Queen's stables. These were originally built for the king. When he saw them, he said they were too small, and that's why the Grand and Petit Écurie were built. This became the Queen's stables. And you can see also here I renovated with the blast furnace texture for the walls. There's another square over there, and another road that leads towards the palace grounds. And now, as we make our way back towards the palace, we'll see the only part of the palace grounds that is not yet completed. It's the northern corner here. Of course, I built the large cistern. There's the edge of the north wing. But over here, I was waiting on developing the landscape here until I knew exactly how the city was going to blend in to it. I also had been waiting to finish the large basin here because I knew at some point I would find uh, a good representation of fountains, which I did with the newest update to Minecraft. We have the sulfur springs, the geysers, which allow me to have these nice spurts up. I am thinking about retexturing them to have a slight bluish tint, so they look a little bit more like water and not only like steam. But I do think that it looks very nice for this purpose. Here in one of the bosquets, you can see I have a nice variety of plumes going up. And flying over some of the bosquets, the formal gardens that I had finished a long time ago, it feels very long ago now, going back towards the center of the gardens, you can see I have a few more geysers over here, along with some stationary mobs that have no AI, so they remain where they are, like statues. I used a lot of those to decorate the different fountains, give them some life. Oh, I've gotten into a habit of naming the llamas and trading villagers whenever they pop up, because I'm curious to see how far they wander. And when I name them, they don't despawn, and I can see where they end up. A few weeks ago, I made sure to do some updates to the facade, some of the new textures I came up with. A while ago, the end stone I had made into this nice, smooth yellow brick. We have the polished sulfur. We also have the nice chiseled capitals there with a good yellowish tint rather than the grayish one. And now we'll go back out into the gardens, deeper into the grounds. I have no idea how many trees I planted in the course of building the Versailles grounds. It's definitely in the thousands, whether it's in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I'm not sure. But I just did it one piece at a time, not even one bosquet at a time necessarily, because the bosquets were divided up by pathways. So I would have lots of triangles and pentagons and hexagons and rhombi, and I would just do one section at a time, filling them in with grass and trees. These trees over here, the taller ones, I had to custom build. That took quite a while. Here we have the Apollo fountain, which was one of the most notable fountains of the Versailles Gardens. We have the nice statue. Unfortunately, the dolphins, I couldn't figure out how to make them gold in color, but everything else is nice and golden. Going here by Little Venice, through the gates into the park. We'll fly up towards the Trianon. I won't bother showing the menagerie over on the south side of the Grand Canal because I've shown that off already, and there haven't been any updates to that or to La Lanterne. I believe that I had finished the grounds of the park by the time of my previous video. There are little bits of farmland, just some general open areas. It's not particularly interesting. I mean, if you download the world, feel free to go over and take a look. But a lot of it was based off of real life Google Maps images. So back up here towards the Grand Trianon, I've already shown that off. I did do some subtle updates to some of the colors, some of the textures. Not too much though. The Petit Trianon, as we start to lag a little bit here. I did finish the grounds for this a couple of months ago. And if we take a look in here, back in the Queen's Theater, I've shown this off before. A nice ornate theater, but much smaller than the main palace opera house. Here behind the stage, we have a map of the Trianon estates. And you can see in the upper right corner here, this was undeveloped last we checked. That's the location of the Queen's hamlet. Well, just this past week, I made sure to put the finishing touches on the Queen's hamlet. So we'll go up in that direction. I am very pleased with how the Petit Trianon estate turned out, even though I had to rotate it 45 degrees and it doesn't quite fit on the map the same way as it does in real life. I did also update the facade, the walls of the Petit Trianon from the yellow terracotta to that nice end stone brick that I think looks very clean and neat. It was quite a bit of work trying to get all of these little streams and ponds and pathways done. I have the Belvedere, which I saw a picture recently of the real Belvedere, and I'm pretty sure that mine is just a little bit too small. So I may change that at some point. We'll see. But at any rate, going back towards the Queen's Hamlet, we see all of the grass where I just went hog wild with the bone meal to grow lots of dandelions and poppies and grass. What I actually do is use the bone meal, and then over the area, I use the fill command to replace tall grass with air to effectively erase it. That way, it doesn't look too wild, just wild enough. But here we come up on the Queen's Hamlet, the model agricultural village. You can see all the nice little rings of smoke coming up from the chimneys. We have the lighthouse tower, all the little houses and buildings. I found it a little tricky to try to reconcile the interiors with the small exteriors. That's why it took me so long to actually finish these two buildings here in the center. These I only just finished this week, and I think they're fine. The inside is suitably fancy with a rustic exterior. We have a nice room upstairs with the nice fireplaces with the rouge de Rance. We have all the nice little flowers planted. So that's the Queen's Hamlet. That was the last part of the park that was left unfinished. Now going up, you can see here, this diagonal road I have as one of the borders of the Versailles project, as I've decided. What's going to go up there is actually going to be my next project. It's going to have spacious grounds that are going to border Versailles. That way, I don't have to worry too much about trying to smooth out from the Versailles project to the surrounding Minecraft natural terrain. I'll probably do a lot more of this kind of thing. See here, you can see more closely where I've just gone hog wild with bone meal and then gone ahead and replaced all of the tall grass with air. Well, most of the tall grass. I leave little bits here and there just to give it a little bit more character, a little bit more texture. I also try to leave all of the naturally generating animals. See, here you can see donkeys and horses, pigs. That's partially because I like to have evidence of what biome was there before I went through and completely flattened the whole thing. But also because I think that having passive mobs like that makes the whole project feel a little less empty. It doesn't seem so barren and eerie. I like to, well, I like when I erase villages and then still have the villagers and sometimes iron golems or maybe cats, because same thing, they add a little bit of life to the project. I try not to spawn too many villagers when I'm doing a building because I find that they all kind of gather in one place and they add to the lag. I have a few older sections of this world where I spawned villagers years ago and they ended up causing a lot of headaches. And then I feel badly when I have to try to get rid of them. Going here to the south side of the palace grounds, we can see some more of the geyser usage there. But here's an example of how I had to smooth out from the Versailles project grounds to the surrounding terrain. So here at the edge of the grounds, I have things like guard houses, some of which are based off of real life. I have some greenhouses, which I just thought would be relevant buildings to have. And over here, we just have some farmland there along the road. I tried to make sure that the road had enough space on both sides, had sidewalks, trees. Beyond these agricultural fields, I have lots of trees to kind of mask where I had cut into stone. We're getting into, I believe, a mountain biome here. And so you can see how quickly I did this. A lot of these trees haven't even grown yet. But I had this road going up along the south side of the grounds. A few other buildings along the way. And we come up alongside the orangerie being on one side, just to the south of the palace. And on the other side, we have the Lake of the Swiss Guard, which is to scale. It's very large. That was one of the first things that I did for the grounds. You can see the city off to the right side there. And we'll finish off by going back into the palace, and I'll just show off the map that is recently updated with everything that I've done so far. We'll go in through up the Queen's Staircase. I've shown this before. Plenty of different marble textures in that. Through the King's first antechamber, second antechamber, into the Salon of the Bull's Eye. You can see the map here with all of I've done with Versailles. That blue marker is where I'm going to have my next project. And you can see that the Lake of the Swiss Guard and even the vegetable garden are starting to get close to the black lines. Those are roads that I had already done years ago as part of my overall world. So it's all coming together. It's all integrating nicely. And I believe that the next time I have a big video like this on Versailles, it will be about the completion. So I hope you stick around for that. Feel free to take a look at my other shorts and see other projects I worked on. And I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.